So the first thing that I want to ask is, because we women in our lives do try to strike balance among various things that we do. So what is balance?
So thank you very much, Lean in Gurgaon and Shruti, for giving me this opportunity. I'm delighted that we're talking about a subject, womanhood, which is so close to us, which we embody, and yet for some very peculiar reason, we invest the least amount of energy and effort investigating for ourselves, what it really means to us and how we can fulfill ourselves. So I think today's conversation is very important for me and for all the fraternity that is present here. Balance. I think it's a great place to start, because when we think of the word balance, the image that instantly pops into our head is a weighing scale. Or you think of a seesaw. And for me, when I think of balance in life, the image is a little different. It is about two opposite forces that are pulling you in opposite directions, where you're torn between two different things. And negotiating the conflict between these opposite forces is what helps you arrive at balance in your life. Usually these opposite forces relate to the head and the heart. What I really want to do and what I need to do. And I think a woman is the epitome of being stuck between these two forces. And today I want to explore what this really means, because to answer your question and to do justice to how can women find balance, which I'm sure is where you're leading to by asking me what is balance, it's very important that we first understand, how do these two forces apply to women? What is it that women really want? And what is it that they are self-compelled to do? And those words are very important, self-compelled, because I think that the important thing for all of us women is to move away from our victimhood. I think for far too long, we women have believed that things are happening to us, that we are being treated in a certain way. And I want to turn that and flip that completely over and say, we have allowed ourselves to be treated in a certain way, and can we take our power back? So I'm going to try and investigate this from that perspective, because that is true empowerment in any real sense. Now, when you asked me this question, it set me thinking when you asked me to come and join this forum and speak about a woman's life. And so I decided to do a quick research on social media, because I said it shouldn't just be reflective of my views. I wanted to be the voice of the woman. And so I spoke to women from various stages and stands of life in different circumstances to investigate what is it that women really want. And I found when I collated that data, 4 very interesting points emerged for me. The first one, which is I think fairly obvious, but didn't seem so obvious to me when I initially started out, a woman wants the freedom to think the way she wants, do what she wants, make her own choices, live her life the way she wants, wear what she wants, choose the career she wants, the ambitions, the choices. And it's suddenly, given that I spent 18 years in advertising, I had this image of the 90s Little ad pop into my head. I don't know if, anyone here is that old. I am. And I was working for Lintaz, and we were very closely associated with the Levers advertising. But at that point in time, when they did this work of understanding what women wanted and they worked with psychologists, it very clearly popped up that putting a girl under a waterfall was what would really help her relate with the brand. Why? because they knew back then that the one thing she really craved for was freedom. And it was interesting because at that point in time, they discovered that the only time a woman was really free was when she went into shower. That was her time. She could dream, she could fantasize, she could be in her free space. And so for eons, it seems that women have craved freedom. And yet they've never voiced it. And I think it's very important for us to understand why is it that this craving is so intense in us. And if we see right from childhood when we are born, the voices in our head, the environment, it all trains us, it curtails our freedom by saying women can do this, or young girls should not step out, or they shouldn't wear these clothes, or it's not safe for you to be around here, or you can't be, too late, you must come back before dark, you can do this activity, you can't do this activity, this career choice is not right for you, maybe you should choose something else, etc. And so we can see that from childhood, we begin to just embody this freedom can't be mine kind of belief. Then if we have siblings in the family, we start observing, even as a very young child or a very young girl, we start observing that the rules are different for the brother and the rules are different for the daughter. So the brother can come home later in the evenings, or the brother can go out with his friends. You can, go out for the parties and the pubs and the hanging out with your male friends. But the girls need to be more cautious. We're imprinted, entrained into this idea that your freedom is limited. And then, of course, as we go through life, I've heard women say this to me, that the first few years are spent, I'm enslaved to my father's views. And it's very interesting because somehow it seems that the responsibility for the family honor lies on the shoulder of the daughters for some reason. And which is why we hear of things like honor killing, or we hear of things like the shame that is brought to families if a girl behaves in a certain ways or has an affair, etc., etc. But we rarely ever hear of the same thing with regards to menfolk. And so somewhere this feeling that, okay, I have to uphold the family honor, and therefore I must listen to my father and be the keeper of the family's honor. Thereafter, I must be the keeper of my husband's wishes. And thereafter, I must be the keeper of my son's wishes. That seems to be the 3 stages of a woman's life. I wanted to explore this first facet because I spoke about the 4 things women want very deeply, because I think somewhere this is like the anchoring or the root factor or the causal factor why women have the guilt issues that they do. So the need for freedom and the need to be able to choose how she wants to live her life is very, very core to what a woman wants. The second aspect that I found was that she has a deep understanding to be understood, to be emotionally honored. Now, women tend to be more emotionally complex than men. And I often tend to describe their emotionality. If I were to look at a symbol, I would say a woman is a jalebi and a man is a straight line. Because a man's orientation or the way his mind works is more about doing things. It's external driven. And a woman's feelings or emotions are more intertwined and more complex, and therefore she really wants to be understood. She wants her feelings to be understood. She wants to be able to have authentic conversations. Very often women in a relationship to feel fulfilled want communication, free-flowing communication. And if there are silent pauses or pregnant pauses in the relationship with the people, or particularly the partner, it's always punctuated with, "Acha kuch bolo na," say something. She wants the partner to express themselves. She wants herself to express what she's experiencing. She wants her partner to investigate what she's going through, and she wants that to be honored. And it's strange because unanimously, I found all the women express this particular need very actively, saying, I want this, which also then means that this is a need that is rarely fulfilled. The communication, the expression, the emotional understanding. The third aspect was being valued, being loved and respected. It's almost like she comes with the stigma of not being valued. And she lives with this idea of, I am inferior. It may not be conscious. She could be a bra-burning feminist on the outside, but the imprinting of the culture, the imprinting of, the ancestry, the grandmothers who've gone before her, the things that were said to her about how to be a good woman or how to be a good girl, etc., is also deeply embedded in her mind, that she rarely is able to value herself, but that is one thing she craves, to be loved and to be respected. And the last aspect, or the fourth aspect, is she wants to feel worthy. Strangely enough, every woman struggles with self-acceptance. And this then indicates that I'm in a battle with myself. So I'm not really fighting anybody on the outside. If I could win this battle with myself, if I could wholeheartedly accept myself, then my job would become so much easier of living through life more happily. Now, this is what women want. To be able to understand where the guilt arises from, Shruti, it's very important that we see what is it that women settle for against these wants, because this is what our heart desires. What is happening from the head space, the logic which says that ye tumhe karna padega, or these are the expectations that life has from me. Now she wants freedom, but what she does is she, through life, becomes a burden carrier. I was actually completely shocked when I looked at the data from this little research that I did, because I anticipated that somewhere in this list of what fulfills me, a woman will turn around and say motherhood. I am one of those women who, maybe being a Cancerian, but I love mothering children. And so for me, I just assumed that it was a natural urge. And we've been, again, imprinted with those ideas that motherhood is a natural urge for a woman is incomplete without becoming a mother, etc. But I found it didn't even feature once. There wasn't a single mention of it. In fact, the only list it featured on was in the what limits me and what damages my well-being, because what happens is, and this is to understand this correctly, is that so much of her life and her prime life is given towards rearing and bearing children. And which then really means that during that entire period, she doesn't have the space or the freedom to think of herself, because she prioritizes the family. She prioritizes the husband, the in-laws, the children, and creating this little nest and making everybody else happy. So she becomes the burden carrier willingly. Nobody's imposing it on her. She's willingly choosing it. And marriage, motherhood, leading to self-suppression of her own needs. Then she wants to be understood, but what she's actually doing is she doesn't understand her own self. She never invests time trying to figure out what I want, how can I strike the balance in my life, how can I make sure that what I want is also fulfilled in addition to these responsibilities or these burdens which I've chosen to carry myself. And therefore, she's constantly seeking validation. Validation that I'm a good daughter-in-law, I'm a good wife, I'm a good mother. And very often she spends a lot of her time worrying about this, that I'm not good in these roles. She becomes fearful, she becomes servile, she becomes underconfident, because she's constantly feeling not enough. The third aspect she wanted was to be valued. And this is very interesting. She wants to be valued, but she doesn't value herself. And therefore, she spends most of her life blaming herself. Anything goes wrong in the family, She will stand up and, become this sacrificing mother who will say, ki, my fault. It's happening because of me. Self-blaming, self-judging, devaluing yourself, doubting, constantly doubting yourself. And so, who is the biggest enemy of her own value? She herself is not valuing herself sufficiently. Because we have to understand this whole principle of the microcosm and the macrocosm. I would say that whatever's happening inside of us, we're like a data radiating machine, and you have a smart TV on the outside. So whatever you're radiating from the inside onto that smart TV, and the smart TV is all the people and the experiences that are on the inside. यहाँ से आप mirror कर रहे हो, तो आपके experiences आपको, they're meeting you in your external life. Now, if my internal understanding or my relationship with myself or my belief about myself is I don't value myself, nobody on the outside is going to value me because they're going to take me for granted because I take myself for granted. So the issue we must turn inwards and home in inwards into our own selves and say, why have I devalued myself? And the last aspect, which is she wants to feel worthy, but she's constantly discounting herself. Every woman puts herself last on her list. Let everybody else's needs be met. Mera kya hai? It doesn't matter. And that mentality of being last on her list, where she's deprioritizing herself, she's discounting herself, she's constantly neglecting herself, what does it say about her? I'm not worthy of my own attention, my time, my indulgence. I don't care about me. But she wants others to care about her. How is that even possible if you don't care about yourself to begin with? And I have this analogy. The thought in my head was, women want to be the empress, the compassionate empress. But how they end up being, or what they settle for, is being the maid. If we look at these two opposite forces within ourselves, what we want and what we settle for, they are pulling us apart in different directions. And whenever we want something, but we are doing something else, we'll be guilt-ridden because we are constantly trying to negotiate and balance these things. And we are constantly feeling unfulfilled. And therefore, if we really and truly want to be guilt-free, it is very important that we start with asking ourselves, what is it that I want? Have we actually sat down with ourselves and invested enough time to say, what is important to me? What will make me feel valued in my own perspective? What will make me feel that the life I lived was valuable beyond being the wife and beyond being the mother? And how much time or energy am I investing into those activities? And once I have a deep understanding of what it is that I want to do, I then go about actualizing that and manifesting it. And whatever that means for me, without getting impacted by the cultural imprinting. So a lot of young girls who come to me now for clinical work, when I meet them, they're expressing this need. I don't want to marry, I don't want to be a mother. It's interesting how this is opening up. And earlier, it would almost be seen as blasphemous if a woman said, I don't want to be a mother. But the question is, if she feels that her prime years would be spent either rearing the child or ignoring the child, and she doesn't want to carry that guilt and that burden, and she chooses, I don't want motherhood, I want to fulfill my dreams, what is wrong with that? I mean, it's like a man saying, I don't want to get married and I want to be single, I want to be a bachelor. It's no different from that, right? So I'm saying increasingly women need to just stop, pause wherever in their life stage they are, however many, whether they're young or they're old, whether you're in your first bloom or you're in your second bloom post your menopause. Stop and say, whatever number of years I have in my life, how do I want to put the life back into those? Make your own choice. But to say, my father expects me to get married, therefore I will get married. My husband expects me to have children, therefore I will have children. I will have the second child for my first child. And now I am going to be resentful my entire life because I couldn't do what I wanted to do. So I've settled in just being good mother, good wife.
So
I think
true.
the onus of that must lie with the woman because she did not choose what she wanted. And maybe we need to awaken to this, take responsibility for this, own it and say, my life, my choices. Do I have the Shakti? Do I have the clear-mindedness and the clear-headedness to embrace what I want? And equally, if a woman says, I simply want to be a mother and I want to create my nest and I don't want to be a working woman. I don't want to go out and conquer the world and be equal to man and achieve, this sense of equality in a boardroom with a man. That is equally welcome. But make your choices. And once you make the choices, you'll have less guilt. I won't say you'll be guilt-free because I think guilt is something that afflicts men as well as women. So it's not gender specific at all. And it is a balance we have to arrive at each day in our lives. And yet it is something that we must invest our time, attention, and our choice into.